This broadcast will start in 15 seconds. This broadcast will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Voice of Stockton. For more information on The Voice of Stockton, go to thevoiceofstockton.org.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, The Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Welcome to Interfaith Voices San Joaquin, a monthly program coordinated by the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Stockton Social Justice Committee. I'm Jerry Bigby, program host and committee chair. The purpose of our show is to explore social justice concerns in Stockton and San Joaquin County from an inclusive interfaith perspective. Our goal is to promote interfaith dialogue, understanding, and collaboration in addressing important issues in our community. Today's topic will be looking at the local interfaith ministries associated with the LGBTQ community and addressing their needs. We have two incredible guests today, the Reverend Terry Miller from Valley Ministries, MCC, and Sam Allen, seminary student at the Star King School for the Ministries. So if it's okay with you, we'll get started.
Great.
Good. So could both of you just give us a brief overview of some of your current roles and activities related to ministering to the LGBTQ community?
Okay. Well, currently I'm a seminary student in a very LGBTQ seminary. So I do some witnessing work where I witness people online as well as in person. What I'm doing right now is kind of a mentorship / sibling relationship with a couple of people who have Christian backgrounds and aren't so sure about Christianity, or one person who is becoming a pastor, or who wants to become a pastor but has to get over some stuff right now.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting. Terry?
Well, my role is a senior pastor of Valley Ministries in Metropolitan Community Church, and we do a lot of different things in the social justice area, but personally as a pastor, my job is to shepherd people and encourage people, and our church is an all-inclusive place where people could come with no faith or a faith tradition from every walk of life, and there's a safe place for people to come and explore the idea of spirituality and God without judgment or fear or hate, and a lot of things that have been put out there. And so my role is to facilitate that by offering resources and teaching classes and such, and the message on Sunday, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Well, if we could step back just a little bit, and maybe if each of you could share just a little bit about your own faith journey and your faith background of how you've come to do this important work that you're doing.
Sure. Well, I was raised American Baptist. I went to First Baptist on Alpine in El Dorado until I was about 14, and maybe 15. And I felt the message of love your neighbor as yourself, and I'm drawing a blank here, but love each other as I have loved you. I felt that seep in. I called them the grandparents across the street. They were missionaries and Gideons. And so I grew up instilled in the values of Christianity and the values that are common to many world religions. But after a while, I started to wander, and just First Baptist wasn't the best fit anymore. And so 10 years, I was into transcendentalism and Walt Whitman, and then I discovered First UU, and started attending after I was, after I was invited by a friend, I think. Yeah.
Well, my faith journey is long because I'm a little bit older than Sam. But I grew up in a very fundamentalist church called the Brethren religion, and I was baptized there, and my family were members, my grandmother especially. And then I transformed into the Nazarene Church, which was right down the street from my house, and I went to the Nazarene Church for many years growing up. And then I also went to Assemblies of God Church, and of course then in my late high school, early college years, I came out to myself and realized that my sexuality was important, and those faith traditions were not loving and kind. It was very hateful. And I was told, you're going to go to hell, the Bible beating and the bashing. And I said, well, if I'm going to go to hell, I'm going to go to hell having a good time, right? But I knew God through college in a distant way. And in 1989, my life turned around. I used to be a drug dealer, just really, I lived a totally different life than what I live now. I turned totally away from God, but I dealt drugs, and I it was just a whole, that's another show.
Okay.
But where I was going to the meetings, there was a church, and it was River City Metropolitan Community Church, where I met Reverend Ed and Reverend Elder Frida Smith, who Reverend Ed has since been murdered, but Reverend Frida is still alive, and my mentors. And I went to that church, and I found a loving and compassionate God where I knew that I wasn't alone. The lost sheep had come home, and it didn't matter that I liked purple grass, as they say, and so I've been in MCC since 1989, and I felt the calling to ministry, and I went back to school, and the rest, they say, is history. So I think I'm formed for MCC because we are eclectic. There's a lot of different faith traditions that come. So.
I feel very comfortable at MCC.
Yeah.
Because the background of Christianity with the inclusiveness of the MCC way of looking at life and looking at salvation and just acceptance.
Right.
Acceptance.
I think for me, I don't tell people how to believe. Here's a platter for you. It's kind of like going to a smorgasbord, and we don't all like the same things. It doesn't mean that faith is sometimes selective. I think that we have to make that commitment to our faith. But I also believe that for example, communion, there's different ways to look at communion, and so I'll say how you believe it to be, or how it becomes for you. And so I'm not telling them this is that or this is this, but it's how you perceive it to be. And that's really important, I think, because we come from different walks, and we have to understand that spiritually. I think Jesus said in John that other sheep that I have that are not of this fold. So to me, that's really powerful. It's, yes, we have Jesus, but there's other sheep that aren't just exactly like us, and that's important.
Great. Good message. So thinking about social justice, would you say that ministering to and addressing the spiritual and societal needs of the LGBTQ community is a social justice issue currently?
I say yes.
I do too.
Why?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I see a lot of people who've been hurt by various religions, by Christianity specifically because of where we live. And it's kind of like being a woodworker and you know, seeing a piece of wood that might have been marred or hurt in some way, and kind of like helping the wood come back to life and beauty. And that's what I feel the social justice calling of being a listener is, and a pastor is, and someone who is just able to meet people where they are, wherever they may be.
I think, Sam, you hit the nail on the head, especially in this community where we live. It's not as progressive as other communities. I feel we have a lot of work to do, and I don't know if you're familiar with what happened to me a few years ago about the sunrise service, and I think that that's opened some eyes, but I think that there's still a lot of baggage around that, around the inclusiveness of people, and I mean, we have had picketers at our church, you know, and we've had hateful messages. I get letters all the time about that, and so I think that there's still a lot of work around the awareness that we're people. We all bleed the same, as Mandisa says. You know, we're human beings, and we're spiritual beings too, I believe. And I think that that's so powerful. And there's so many people that say that their way is the only way, and there's this whole line that's drawn in the sand. Theologically, I might not agree with certain people, but I can find common ground. I think that that's the important thing, is that we err on the side of hope and love instead of fear and judgment, right? And in that, there's a lot of social justice issues. It's not just LBGT issues, but that's a big thing, I think, for us. But there's also migrant worker issues. There's the slave trade issue. There's the cost of living issues. There's a lot of things that we need to work toward, and us as community of faith leaders, I think, have a responsibility to address those things. And I know I face it in my own congregation, because I have people who live day by day, paycheck to paycheck, and it's not just in my community. I believe it's true for a lot of folks. So I think that as faith workers and in LGBTQ work, that we have to show up and we have to be present to say, hey, there's a better way.
Would you feel comfortable sharing some of that history that you alluded to for folks who maybe aren't familiar with that or didn't live in the community at that point?
I had been invited by Stockton leadership, the chaplain at the time, invited other communities of churches to come to Easter Sunrise service, and I thought, oh great, we've made some headway, and I was all excited, and yes, we'll come, and maybe my choir can do something, because we have a great music minister, and music is one of our gifts, and then a week later, I get an email saying, "Oops, sorry, made a mistake. You're not invited." And so I wrote. I wrote a letter back to the person, and in the meantime, I don't know how the story broke, but somebody told the media. It wasn't me. I didn't spill the beans, but the media got a hold of it, and it ballooned into this whole ordeal where I met with the city police department. Can't think of his name right now. Blank. I met with the police chaplain board, and the thing is that they ended up canceling that service. They did invite me at the end, but then they canceled the service. And then in your sense, they have a new person, Bud, who's directing Stockton leadership, and we have been a part of that service. So I think that that has built some bridges, but I still think there's uncomfortability around that, around the work that we have to do. So it's still that fear. I think fear leads a lot of people to act out and act in inappropriate ways. So.
And the rationale for them disinviting you, did they give a specific reason?
Because I think it's because I'm a lesbian, and that our church folks, and let's be clear, I want to be clear that our church is open and affirming, but it's not a gay church. We are a Christian church, and we have straight people, we have gay people, we have questioning people, we have trans people, we have people. And so it's not about it's not about being gay per se, but that was their issue, is that we somehow are promoting, maybe they can get it by coming in contact with us being gay. I don't know about that.
Yes.
I think that's a perception that we're recruiting people, or the whole back in the 80s when Ellen did the whole toaster oven thing, and so I think that there's still that element of fear with people of faith, that maybe if everybody came out in their churches, wow, because I know that there's gay people sitting in the Baptist church and the Catholic church, and they're sitting in the churches and they're afraid to come out, and it boggles my mind why people stay in churches that are preaching against them. I don't understand that, and I grant it, MCC is maybe not for everybody, because we're very progressive and some people want different structure, but I don't understand why people give their resources and all of that to hateful places, or that condemn them. So.
Right. So let's talk about what's going on in our community, among the various faith communities. What are some of the activities currently going on that you know of that are specific to reaching out and ministering to the needs of the LGBTQ community, advocating for that community? What are the faith communities doing around here?
Well, I know that we've been very involved with Gay Pride, of course, San Joaquin Pride. In the past, we've done marches. We are very active social justice-wise. And I am part of the pastoral interfaith group that we meet on a monthly basis. And that's really important, because I think, we have Reverend Bob from your church, amazing, and Reverend Lynn from St. Anne's, and the Rabbi Jason from Temple Israel, and others who come, but those are the mainstay folks. And we're right now preparing to have a potluck in December 2nd, actually, over at St. Anne's. And in the past, we've done World AIDS Day, and that's always December 1st. And this year we decided to do a gathering where people come, have lunch, and then we'll do a service of remembrance in remembrance of World AIDS Day. So that's just one of the things that I'm working on in our community for interfaith, because it's so important to understand that we've lost a whole generation of people due to HIV/AIDS. And we don't have a San Joaquin AIDS Center anymore. There's, that organization went defunct. So, because it's hard work. It's very much hard work. So, I think advocating for the people that don't have is very important as well. So I think that there's a lot of things that I've done personally in the past as a pastor, but that's what's coming up. So mark it on your calendar, December 2nd, St. Anne's, 12 o'clock.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sam, other things that going on in the community you know of?
The Pride Center has a lot going on right now. It has, let's see, a couple of groups for transgender people. One is a social group, and one is a kind of mental health facilitated group. There are a few, it seems like every month there's some kind of gala, that happens at the Pride Center, some kind of social themed night. Let's see, we have the Stockton Transgender Alliance. We have a lot of things that are online right now.
And are those tied at all with the faith community, or do they have a faith component?
Not so much, I guess. Yeah. In terms of the faith community, I know our church does outreach and supports the San Joaquin Pride Center and flies the rainbow flag as well as the trans flag and the Love is Love message. And so I know we have that, and I know there are probably about 5 or 6, I would say, churches that are open and affirming of people who are out and in the queer community.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like an opportunity right now for us to come together a little bit more to do some outreach specifically for.
Mm-hmm.
We did have in June, the first weekend in June, we had the Faith Family Day,
Mm-hmm.
where we do a barbecue at Oak Park, and so we were involved with that, with the Pride Center, and there's an adoption agency as well that was working with the Pride Center, and so I think that those are the kind of things as faith communities that we show up to, and we probably could do a better job. I think it's always been my desire to work interfaith with other leaders and other community people to stir the pot, if you will, for the good of. I think that sometimes religion gets a bad name, God gets a bad name, and when you say you're from a church or from a community of faith, people they back up and they don't want to have a dialogue, and it's not because of you, it's because of the baggage that they have or that the things that they've been told. And so I think the message is that there are places that are safe, there are good communities of faith that can support you in the process wherever you're headed. Right. And so I appreciate you asking me to come on the show today, so that hopefully this is a beginning, that the message can get out, that that we are not the enemy, we're not hateful. We are here to encourage others to experience their inner self, their spiritual self, their self. As people.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that kind of gets to my next question, which is, what could the faith communities here in our local community be doing more in terms of addressing the issues, the needs of the LGBTQ community?
I think that's a really hard question, because I think that there's a lack of desire for faith. I really think that there's a lack of desire. I think cultures change, at least in my almost 30 years of ministry. I've seen culture change as there's a shift in the fact that people don't go to church. Mm-hmm. And so the question I have is, what else should we be doing instead of just having worship on Sundays? Okay. And so we've talked about, at least in our circle, we've talked about spiritual chats. Time to have coffee with someone and talk about spiritual things, or I don't have the answer, obviously, but I think that there are things that we could be doing that we're not doing that we ought to be doing. So
that reminds me of actually at our church we did a social justice training about 2.5 years ago, and we were doing the listening that one of the interfaith groups, PICO, does. And we came up, my chat partner and I came up with the idea of a beloved cafe, which is where, you can come to a church, or you can ask for like an hour or 2 or 3. Just open it up to anybody who wants to be there, and talk about whatever you'd like, maybe a spiritual theme or a theme around social justice, but really something that would attract younger people into the church, because they might have different needs. The people who aren't going to church right now might be not going, but needing a spiritual outlet of some kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are some of the challenges and barriers? You speak about sort of culture change, about kind of away from sort of organized religion. But are there other specific barriers, particularly in our community, you think, in terms of reaching out or meeting the needs of the LGBTQ
I do
community?
think a lot of people are still in the closet. I think there's a fear around coming out, about living authentically, I believe that. A couple of years ago, I taught a class at UOP called Spiritual But Not Religious. And I think that that's kind of the mindset, is we're spiritual but we're not religious. And I always say, well, then you've never been to my church, because we're not religious either. I think we're more spiritual than we are religious. But I think that the cultural things, I don't have that answer. I wish I had the answer, because if I did, then it would be like I'd be writing books and all that good stuff. But I think that if we don't figure it out, that we're going to lose another generation. I trust that God's fingerprint is with us, and that God will direct us in the way, and that we'll figure it out. I do believe we'll figure it out. I'm just not quite there yet. At least I'm not. I don't know about you, Sam.
I'm not sure. I know. Well, I think when thinking of what I get out of church, I get a reminder to be a good person. And I get a family of people who genuinely care about me and who are different from me, but also have a shared outlook of helping others. And I'm not sure, kind of like with Terry, I'm not sure exactly where those needs are being met right now. So are we in a selfie culture, Facebooky culture, where we find our needs being met online? Or are we in a culture where we don't find them being met at all? And I worry about that. Like, I really do. The lack of connectedness that seems to be in this culture right now.
Right. I think we have, I was telling you earlier about our messages are on YouTube every week, and we do have a Facebook page, and we have a Twitter page, and so there are ways in which we are trying to connect with people, but it's more than just having that page. I think it's more than trying to be in dialogue online with somebody. I'm an old school. Face to face is always better. I'm amazed that people say some of the things they say on Facebook, or they'll resign from a relationship on Facebook. They'll break up. It's like, really, those kind of things. And so I often wonder, have we lost the connectedness? Have we lost the value of reach out and touch someone? And I think we try to do that in our community of faith, where we serve the homeless and do other things, but sometimes it doesn't seem like it's enough. So
I like that. The person I'm dating right now is Jewish, and I just went to the Yom Kippur service, and the rabbi was talking about social justice.
He's awesome.
Oh, different rabbi.
Oh, different.
Sacramento Reformed.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's
too.
awesome too.
And she talked about one of the deep sayings that was, you can't fix the whole world, but neither is it your call to not fix anything. And there's something beautiful in that, because it empowers you in what you're doing, and it calls you to keep going. Right. To be a better person.
Good point.
Yeah.
One specific area of spiritual life that I'm interested in as a nurse is particularly those life transitions that individuals and families go through. Things like when babies are born, or when couples come together and make a commitment to one another, or during death and dying. All those kinds of important life transitions that historically, at least, religion has been part of that journey for many people, not all. Do you feel, especially in our local community, that we have the resources and the openness of the faith community to meet the needs of LGBTQ individuals and families, especially during those important transitions?
Well, when marriage was legalized, I did a lot of weddings. Okay. But, I get calls from people who never step foot in our community of faith when someone dies, because they know that they can reach out. And so I do know that in times of crisis that there's an opportunity for people to reach out and touch and get the connection that they need. And mostly it's by the word of mouth, but believe it or not, it's still old school word of mouth, people knowing somebody. I had a man that came to our church, his partner passed, and a friend I went to high school with said, I have the person just for you. They called me, and now he's a valuable member of our community because we were there in the time of need.
Right.
And so I think that if there is a need, I know we will bend over backward to try to help meet those needs. Sometimes we can't, but we do the best we can with the resources that we have. I know that we used to have a area on aging. There used to be a LBGT roundtable, and that was an amazing group where we were with the San Joaquin County, and we did amazing work in that group. But that group is no more, which is very sad. The funding was cut for that through San Joaquin County. So those are the things that need attention. I think that it's more than just us as faith leaders. We have to connect too with the people that are actually doing the work, because we need the therapists, and we need the counselors, and we need the teachers and the educators, and those that are the hands and feet that do the amazing work that they do. We need those, and we need to be connected with one another, I believe.
And that ties back to the social justice as spirituality thing, the oneness of people working together despite, whatever their differences are. Understanding and having a common goal that they can all lend their gifts to. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think, what was the question again?
Oh, it was just my interest in sort of the life transitions and how do we support our whole community that those be healthy transitions.
Yeah, I think there are services out there, but I think because our area is conservative, more conservative than it could be, even having like emblems or logos saying we are a safe space or something like that would be helpful. Like for the hospice, for example, if there's an LGBT person who's needs hospice care, or their family needs hospice care, just knowing that is an okay thing to go to and that they won't be judged.
Well, one of the things I think our group did was we changed the forms in which, because filling out a form, as you know, can be very taxing on a differently abled person or a questioning person or a person in transition. And so one of the works that we did was the actual forms that the county was using and was actually changed because of the work that we were doing. So I think that those are the kind of things, that's a social justice issue, whether or not they're going to, who wants to fill out a form when they don't feel included. I mean, I don't want to get off track, but I think of the census coming up, It's like when they remove that, it's like, do I rebel and not do it and have them come and put me in jail or what? Or
not count you.
Or not count you. But they're not going to count us anyways. They're not counting LGBTQ people. They're just, they're not asking that question. They remove that question. And they're not, what was the other question? Oh, with the immigration. Yeah. If you're the citizenship question. So it's, those are that's a social justice issue, and how do we teach that? How do we teach people to get out and vote and to vote their conscience? I'm not going to tell people how to vote, but to pay attention, because a lot of people aren't paying attention. They're apathetic and they want somebody else to do it. Well, those days are over. They're over. Right. I mean, we have to rise up and say no more. Enough is enough. We have to as a person of faith. The other thing, the evangelical Christians give me a bad name because they've taken hostage faith. They've taken the scriptures and held it hostage to their way of thinking without the inclusion of really what Jesus is saying, other sheep that I have that are not of this fold, or John 3:16, for whosoever believes. Whosoever means, who does that mean? Everybody, you know,
Us.
anybody who believes. So I think that, wow, we have some work to do.
Definitely. Definitely. So, speaking of work to do, if there are individuals or faith groups that are inspired by our conversation today, what can they do? Can they contact you? Can they get involved? What's your suggestion to folks who feel strongly about this?
I would invite them to come to church because both of our churches are very much supportive, and they'll be able to network not just like with me or with Reverend Terry, but with a large group of people, and they might find their niche more easily in the group of people that they're interacting with. Like, they can definitely contact me, and I can try to point them in the right direction or invite them in and stuff like that. But I would invite them to get involved in a community, more importantly.
Yeah. I too, you can contact me at vmmcc.org or revtlm@vmmcc.org. And we can put that up if you want. And I would invite them to come to a Wednesday where we're serving the homeless. We take sandwiches out if that's your thing, or come on Sunday. We have worship at 10, and then we try to do something every week after worship, whether it's a movie, conversation, a class, community. We just went out and served the migrant workers a few weeks ago. And so there's things that we're doing that people could be a part of. And it's not just, we're just not saying it, we're doing it. We're actually living into our faith. And I think that that's really important. And I would also say, you know, one-on-one, if you want to have a cup of coffee with me, I'll even buy the coffee. Because I'm a coffee person.
Right.
And we could have a conversation over coffee and talk about life, spiritual things, or not. I think that that's a way to connect with people as well. So I think it's important.
Great.
Especially those introverts.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, like us.
That is
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
And and December 2nd is really important, I think, for people if they're looking for a safe place, you know, to have lunch and have a conversation with somebody that you might not know, and in a safe environment, and then share a service of remembrance, because we all, I mean, I sadly have lost a lot of people due to HIV/AIDS, but we're not just focusing on HIV/AIDS. It's a service of remembrance, so we can remember those people who've been before us. I think that that's really important, is that we honor and say hey to the folks that have paved the way for us. And I think of our founder, Troy Perry. This year, 50 years will be, MCC's 50 years old, October 6th.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
My door's always open. I'm most easily reachable on Facebook. And so I'm Sam Allen, and I believe I don't know what the city is. It's either Berkeley or Turlock or Stockton. I'm not sure which.
One of those.
But, you know, I feel like, especially people who have the thinky part of their brain on, a lot of the time I'm able to connect with them because I have the thinky part and I have the heart part too. And a lot of young people do need that kind of first step is a distance, and then it becomes a friendship kind of thing. And I understand that.
Good point. Anything else you'd like to add? Anything we've forgotten to talk about?
Well, I know that the Committee for the Transgender Day of Remembrance, which honors the people whose lives have been lost due to anti-trans violence, is beginning to form at the San Joaquin Pride Center. So that's another opportunity. And then I believe it's November 16th or 21st. I'm very bad with dates. We're going to have it at one of the local affirming churches. So there's also a faith component to that as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
The other thing, I do believe that Delta College and UOP have both very good resource centers and are another avenue by which people can get connected if they need a connection point. I think that sometimes we forget we have an incredible university staff people, chaplain there, the interim chaplain now, Reverend Laura, great resource people. And I think that we can also tie that into the picture.
Yeah. And those are very much open to the public.
Yeah.
I actually started reaching out, I think, to the Pride community through UOP. So they're very wonderful.
Yeah.
They're both great resources.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'd like to thank my incredible guests from today. I appreciate this lively conversation and great information, and also thank our listeners for their support of this ongoing program, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.